Well, my name's Mikaela Simpson, and I'm originally from Griffith, which makes me part of the Wiradjuri tribe, but I've been up in Alice Springs for close to 8 years now. I've been in the Territory for over 10 years, so I'm a Territory girl at heart as well, but I work here at Karma Radio. I've been working here for the past 3 years, so I got straight into it pretty much out of high school. Before that, I was working and living part-time out at Yundamu at the pool and as a youth worker. So my boss at the time told me that I needed to get into something new, something different, leave the community and go figure out what I could do. Next thing I know, I'm working at Karma 3 years later and I'm still here, and it's been fantastic. I've lived all across Australia, so moving to Alice Springs, I was definitely made the most aware that I could be of what culture really was and what culture is and how strong it is and how beautiful it is. Flying into Alice Springs, going through the Gap, driving through the Gap, you can just feel that it's this totally different, surreal place that's just full of spirit and full of love, but also full of pain and sadness at times as well. Working in the broadcast industry, I hear both sides of stories. I hear what it's like to be living in one world compared to what it's like to be living in the community. So it gets really emotional for me at times to have to separate myself from my own personal beliefs and opinions, being a journalist, but to have to report on the whole story. So it's hard to not be biased at times, but it's great because, like I said, getting to understand, see and live in both worlds has opened my eyes up to a lot more that I didn't see before coming to Central Australia. As we know, in culture, there's some things that only women can do and there's some things that only men can do. So, you know, it doesn't really affect as much because everyone that I talk to is so open and so welcoming and understand that I'm there to do a job and do it to the best that I can to represent the person that I'm speaking to or interviewing or doing anything, filming, photographing. So I think there's a really good understanding of my role when I step out, not just as an Aboriginal woman, but as the position that I am with working in media as well. Since I've become the women's representative on the CBAA board,
What's the CBAA?
The CBAA is the Community Broadcasting Association of Australia. So I'll just start with that first, how I got into that. I heard all these fantastic women, you know, getting up and speaking and talking about their lives and also talking about the struggles that they have being in media and, you know, trying to get equal rights for both men and women. But I wasn't necessarily getting up to speak to run for this position, but I just had to share my thoughts. And so I got up and I said, you know, you all talk about these struggles. Try being an Aboriginal woman. Like, that's ultimately what it comes down to. No matter what, we're always that step behind, that step below, even though we haven't or don't want it to be. So I got up and I did that. So being in that role, I've definitely tried to open people's eyes up to challenge themselves, to step out of their comfort zone and to step into what it's like to be an Aboriginal person and share their story and not just what you generally hear in mainstream media, news outlets, radio, television, to really get a ground perspective on that. So I think it's hard trying to get people aware of Indigenous women and our rights and what's happening with the community, but it's been great to be able to really be vocal about that on a bigger scale than what Karma is. You know, I'm only 21, so I have all these ideas going in and out of my head at times. I mean, sometimes I've wanted to just completely throw it in and be like, nah, I can't do this anymore. It's too much. It's too much of an emotional strain. But then I realised how important the job is and the role that I do. So I definitely love to stay in media, not so much branch out into a mainstream, you know, commercial media outlet. I love what community radio, especially because that's what my experience is in. I love what that does. So I'd definitely like to still be vocal in the world of politics and doing all of that and standing up for our people, our rights, our women, our men, our children, everything. But I'm kind of the person that takes one day at a time and takes each opportunity as it comes and goes with that flow and just waits for something to happen, but, well, not waits, but is eager for stuff to happen, but I'm not going to go out and chase something I don't feel personally prepared to do. It's an interesting position because, you know, even though I have to and prefer for something to come to me or someone to approach me and want me to share their story, that's not the way it always can be, you know. So, but I think one thing that I've noticed throughout this job is everyone has a story, everyone has something to share, so it's not that difficult to go out and find a story that hasn't been told before, and that's what I love to do, is just share those stories that people don't often hear. I guess the most important thing is, no matter how many times people call it a cliche, is to not give up, you know, to not allow people to walk over you, to be vocal and create conversations, create debates, to do all of that sort of stuff, to stand up for yourself and really recognise the important role that you play, not just within your community or within your tribe or within your reservation, but to realise the important role that you play as a woman in the world. You know, we all play this fantastic role that helps the world circulate, in my opinion. So I think it's important for people, women and men, to remember that, for us to all come together and just keep growing and expanding into the people that we were meant to be. That's it. I think too many people, or a lot of people, fear, you know, being called feminist now, because a lot of them cop a lot of slack for wanting to be better than the other man. But to me, that's not what it's about. It's about being equal to everyone, no matter whether it's a person living up in a huge mansion or a person living in the Todd River. We're all the same. We all have a heart, no matter what. So I think it's important that we all come together, as we were talking about. And that's just what the community is about as well, is being together, standing as one nation. But sadly, it's just not happening at the moment. You just have to have a voice and passion and a heart. You don't need a title to put you in a position that anybody else is capable of also being in. It'd be a lot different if I wasn't in the position that I was in, if I wasn't a journalist here at Karma Radio. You know, I'm not saying I'd probably be out there and be one of those radical protesters, but sometimes I do, you know, miss being able to be a part of that rather than having to just report on it. That's probably the most difficult thing, is, you know, we had a conversation about it this morning, about personal comments and stuff throughout social media, all of that. Like, we really are restricted in our own personal beliefs when it comes to sharing them, but at the same time, you know, we can do that throughout the interviews that we do, through the people that we talk to. You still get to show who you are, but not quite the full extent of who I am. I've got so many opinions that, unfortunately, if I share them on Karma Radio, I might get in a little bit of trouble, not so much from Karma, but from people that we have to keep good relationships with for our industry. So it is difficult being in the position that I am, when I am what I would definitely call a passionate person for equality and for human rights for all people, not just women. So, you know, the whole world seems to be a lot more vocal at the moment. Everyone seems to be coming together, finally standing up and realising that you're a human. It doesn't matter whether you're gay, straight, anything, you know, a woman, a man. There seems to be what I would like to think is a majority of the population finally standing up and realising that we don't live back in the 1800s anymore. It's time to grow up and really come together and, like I said before, be the people that we're supposed to be.